All
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Okay.
we have, but there weren't
Get the
like,
fuck out of here.
whereas block, yeah, yeah, get your fucking movie and go. Okay.
Yeah.
I know you'll know where we were when. I know you'll know where we were when.
Hello, and welcome to Where We Were When, a podcast where we look back at our most memorable movie-going experiences of our youth and eat candy. I'm your host, Heidi Gardner, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother, Justin Gardner. Hi, Justin.
Hey, Heidi. How are you doing this week?
I'm doing very well. I'm excited about this episode because it's a part 2. It's our first twofer.
That's right. That's right. It's an exciting conclusion to the 2-part episode, a very special Where We Were When.
Yes.
And
oh my God.
I actually think like this is like, because we were talking about this, I think we had a really interesting realization about what we're going to talk about. And I think it's really, it's really special and moving, you know,
I think
like
it
to
is
think about it.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of a dissection of sorts. And
Mm.
and I'm excited to get into it, but we have business that we have to get to that we have at the top of every show, which is I sent you something this week. It's our weekly
Some
treat.
candy?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to open this up.
Okay. And I'm going to reach my arm over because that's where mine is.
I've got some raisinets.
Raisinets. Can you hear
That's
the
right.
shake?
Oh, it's a musical instrument. It's a beautiful sound.
It really is.
Now, I will say this. I am not a fan of raisins, but
Mhm.
I can murder some raisinets.
Yes. So you
know?
can't murder. You're not a guy who just goes home and eats raisins after work.
I'm not golden raisins, the California raisins. That is not my jam, you know?
Yeah.
Our grandmother enjoys raisins, soaked in some gin from time to time. Helps with the arthritis, apparently.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you didn't know that. But there's something about this like really questionable milk chocolate wrapped around the raisin, because it does have that like nice, like savory sweet thing going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're fantastic.
I am a bit, and the dark chocolate raisinets, even better.
But I thought about getting you those.
Know what? Don't sweat it. I love them all. But I like this made with whole fruit. They're not pieces of raisins. That's an entire raisin inside of that.
They're really good.
So they are. They really are good.
And honestly, for like what I imagine what you called questionable chocolate, it tastes really good. It tastes like quality chocolate.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's not going to be the highest quality chocolate, but when it's paired, I don't know if they coat the raisin with anything, but when it's paired with the chocolate, it's just that there's this thing that they call, like, the way that they, like, I guess categorize chocolate is the taste is like cheesiness.
Mm-hmm.
So chocolate that has kind of a cheesiness is like a Hershey's, right? And I feel like this is kind of like it's like the cheaper end, right? Mm-hmm. But it works. I really feel like it works. Like the Bunch of Crunch, right? That we had in another episode.
It's not good chocolate.
Not at all. No.
But
with ice cream.
The chocolate to crunch ratio is better in the Bunch of Crunch.
A little bit more of a cheesier chocolate, right? Mm-hmm. But it still works, right? And I think like a higher quality chocolate, it might not even like, you might not even be able to tell, right? That it's higher quality.
Well, I think what it is the raisin really helps the cheap chocolate, because I would say that recently having the Bunch of Crunch next to a raisinette, this tastes better. The raisinette chocolate tastes better.
I agree.
So,
I agree. I'm
Now, the reason that I picked Raisinets for this episode is
mhm.
because this is part 2 of our video store extravaganza, when Justin and I just kind of started talking about like when we remember like going to video stores and renting movies and just like going through them like crazy, sometimes renting the same movie over and over, like just that period in our lives. And last week we talked about Blockbuster and kind of the more like bigger chains of video stores. We even talked about like, the grocery stores that would have their own little video kiosk.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, tonight we're going to talk more about indie video stores. And
Mm.
we were kind of introduced to those by our mom. And Justin, I remember our mom really liking Raisinets. Do you remember this?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
That sounds right. I think that was like the only because like our mom is actually very health conscious.
mm-hmm.
Even though she was a smoker, right? She was still
Yes.
very health conscious. And she wasn't a sweets person, but
No.
she would grab some Raisinets. Like that was kind of I think the only thing that she did like.
And I think that also when she was indulging us by getting them, it was because they had the raisins. So she was like, win-win. I get to like get my kids
That's right.
candy and feed them something healthy. And
Feed him some like
Yeah.
shriveled up sugared fruit.
exactly. So that's why I picked Raisinets
Mhm.
tonight.
I like it.
And
These are
yeah,
good. It's been a minute since I've had these, and
I know they're really good.
I'm gonna finish the whole box tonight.
I'm excited for you. Please. That's the point of this. We're talking about movies or eating candy.
Mhm.
So our mom is what is launching us into kind of Justin and I. So a little backstory. Last week we talked about, kind of 87 to 89 was when our parents were still together, but they were heading into divorcedom. And Justin and I were over at our Mamo and Bampo's, our grandparents, a lot. And that's kind
A
of
lot.
where we were
Yeah.
seeing movie after movie after movie. Well, once and mostly mainstream movies. I mean, last week we read a list of 60 movies that were very, very like mainstream, broad comedies, Oscar winners, just kind of on the radar.
Yeah.
So our parents get divorced like 89, and our mom moves from Raytown, which I don't want to say that's the suburbs.
But
What is
it is.
Raytown?
I mean,
But it is.
it
It's
is.
a different. Yeah.
It's not just the suburbs though. It's known in Kansas City as being a little bit of like a hick suburb. And it was also the setting for the hit television show Mama's Family, Raytown,
Yeah.
Missouri, with
Yes.
Vicki Lawrence. So
So-
it was always a little bit of it was kind of a joke, it's kind of, it's I think Raytown is absolutely charming,
I
but
love it.
yeah, but it has a reputation. So yes,
Yes.
it's a little bit more like the sticks instead of like a suburb, but it is effectively a suburb.
Yeah. So our mom, who was living with our dad in Raytown, home of Mama's Family. Our mom was originally from like Southside Chicago. So I imagine Raytown was a little bit of an adjustment for her, this city girl
Right.
from Chicago. So when they get divorced, our mom moves to Midtown in Kansas City, which Justin and I were just talking about it before the show today. It was like, oh yeah, like of course she immediately got out of Raytown and like
Immediately.
kind of immediately. Like that's not really something
sure
you
that-
think about when you're 6 and they're getting a divorce. It's just like,
Yeah.
why are we not close to dad anymore? It's like, because I want to live in the city, like what I'm used to, and this is me. I went there for him. Like it's like, oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, Ernestine Eileen Hilke, our mom, she is, Southside Chicago through and through, huge sports fan. I would say really helped like kind of like solidify that. 1985, the Chicago Bears. She was doing the Super Bowl shuffle. Right? I mean, she is an
Yes.
urban lady. She's an urban gal, right?
Yes.
And she thrived in Midtown. You
Yes.
know, like at the end of the day, like kids don't like to like have their parents break up, but in hindsight, I understand. And I think it was probably it was definitely best for both of them, right? So she goes into Midtown, dad's still hanging out in Raytown. You know, it definitely, and it did it benefited us because of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. So we moved to Midtown with her and yeah, everything is like totally a 180 difference from when we're at Mammo and Bampo's and when we're at Dad's. And a great example of that was like the video stores. Like on Friday and Saturday nights when we would rent movies with mom, they were from independent video stores. With Justin, you can get into which ones those
Mhm.
were, but we weren't seeing the normal titles that we were seeing at Blockbuster. And mom wasn't renting anything like Who Framed Roger
No,
Rabbit
no,
or Big.
no.
Nothing like
You're
those.
talking about video stores. You're talking about video stores that like turn their nose up at those titles. Like, I don't know if they refuse to like carry them, but it certainly was one of those like, yeah, it's like if somebody were to come into those video stores, like, do you have Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I was like, yeah, we've got that, you know.
Yeah. That's a great impression of all
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's yeah,
Okay.
we have, but there weren't
Get the
like,
fuck out of here.
whereas block, yes, yeah, get your fucking movie and go. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't need your kind here. But but instead of having like literally like 80 copies of it, they have like two. You
Yes.
know, it was like, yeah, but we really can we just, point you toward the director's section, could you actually watch some by the way, I love Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I don't know why
Me
we're using
too.
that as
I don't
an
either.
example.
'Cause-
But but it's Robert Zemeckis. I'm sorry if you're watching this, which you're not, but if you are, he's like, what the fuck is wrong with Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Like, I thought that was a pretty innovative film.
really innovative. We use the best animators. Like,
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
but you're talking about SRO. You're talking about Valentine Video. You're talking about Video Mania, right?
yeah.
You're talking about Roscoe's Video. You're talking about the Fine Arts Theater, which you've talked about, which had the video store inside of the movie theater, which I think is just the perfect combination. It's just you're talking about Tivoli Video.
Yeah.
Tivoli
that was big.
theaters back in the day, they had, I believe Tivoli Video was once ranked as one of the top 10 video stores in the nation.
I
That's how
get
like,
it.
and then they did not have Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like they were
No.
like, no. Like that was something that like as far as like I remember, well, the owner of the Tivoli was very, very adamant. We will not show that content in our theaters. We're gonna only show the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so the same thing applied to the video store as well. So
Yeah.
all of those video stores were almost within walking distance. Now we weren't walking at that time, we were just still driving around, because we were still young. But I mean, like less than a mile from
Yeah.
our most of them. Let me say like three of them, right? Video Mania, Valentine Video, Tivoli Video. Yes, those three definitely were within like a couple minutes.
Yeah.
So
And I'd
it
like to
was
point out too, we were driving in our mom's red Ford Festiva with no muffler. So the video stores could hear us coming from a mile away.
you need to be very. We're gonna have we're either a video of this playing right now. We're not talking about a Fiesta, a Ford Fiesta. Those are nice cars. We're talking
Yeah.
about a Festiva. And the
Festiva.
Festiva is I would say that like the Yugo failed and they said that they gave Ford their plans for that car and be like, do you want this? We'll just give it to you. And Ford's like, yeah, we'll take the Yugo and just make an American version of it. And yeah, I think that sold for like $700 new right off the factory floor.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And then if you got it without a muffler, like our mom, it might have been $350 new.
The muffler was like it was like an add-on, right? So like a rear view mirror, a muffler, tires that were inflated. That was the stuff. Those were the upgrades, right?
Yeah, and it was an add-on that she never added on the whole 10 to 12 years she had the car.
No.
She just chose
No.
to keep it mufflerless.
Yeah, that's right. So during that time though, right, there were some really, really interesting films that we encountered because everybody had a VCR, right? She wasn't like, oh, we're not going to watch television or we're not going to have a VCR because I'm now, free, right? It's like she loved movies. But she loved filmmakers like Jim Jarmusch.
Loved.
Yeah. I mean, that was her jam. She loved the Tivoli. She loved the independent film scene. And movies like Down by Law, that was the first Jim Jarmusch movie that she rented. I want to say that was like the first movie that we watched at the new apartment.
Yeah,
the apartment
I
on
could
Harrison.
see that. Yeah. Yeah.
That was like, it was almost like, and this kind of gets into our theme of like, she was liberated. She was out of Raytown. She was in Midtown where she wanted to live. And I'm going to rent the fucking movies that I want to rent. And she rented Down by Law with Roberta Benigni and Tom Waits. And it's this black and white film that isn't this like big budget. Cause she would definitely rent those movies for us, right? She would definitely rent, go to Blockbuster, go to Hy-Vee, those types of things, right? When it was like during the week and we, I guess, could rent movies during like, the week, it wasn't just the weekend, right? With Mamo and Bampo. But yeah, she really wanted to like, it just felt like she blossomed when she got to Midtown and being able to go to these video stores, it was such a treat for her. And it became a treat for us too.
Yeah. I mean, it was weird being like, I mean, at that time, I think I was like 6 or 7 years old. And I mean, I definitely got a sneak peek into things that I shouldn't have seen, but who knows, maybe I should have. But yeah, something like Down by Law, like, it's funny because years later when I saw Life is Beautiful, like I was kind of like, oh, that's that dude from Down by Law, like the Jim Jarmusch.
Right.
And then it was like, why? And I was like, but why do I know that? And it's like, oh yeah, because that was the stuff mom liked, And what were some other movies from that time that you remember her bringing home?
Well, so yeah, I mean, it was this is really when we were exposed to, it's like, wait a second, movies can be this, right?
Mhm.
So Swimming to Cambodia, Spalding Gray just sits there and talk. Yeah. You owe me some Raisinets. Just sits on a stage and reads his essays. And it was just like, oh wait, that can be a thing.
Another one where like another one for me being like 6 years old, and I had this context of Spalding Gray to like talk about at school, and for no other kids, but maybe my like second grade teacher to be like, oh yes, I like Spalding Gray. Like, it was just, and Heidi, what do you have to say about him? I don't know. I just saw it, like, but I don't know. It was my world. I didn't get it, but it was my world.
Right. But you know what? That's the thing. You don't need to get it at that time, right? Because it then works its magic and it's inside your head. And it's something that I think it's one of the reasons why we're so good at trivia, because, you just kind of get these, like, you just get exposed to this stuff and it just kind of sticks up there.
Yeah.
And you're just like, and it's just you can just then pull from it, right?
Yep.
But some of the other movies, we're talking about Hairspray from John Waters, right?
Yeah.
Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down from Almodovar, The Cook, the Thief, the Wife, and Her Lover by Greenaway, Wings of Desire, Wim Wenders, Drugstore Cowboy, Gus Van Sant, Earth Girls Are Easy. I don't remember the um, director there, but it was this crazy
Oh,
uh, movie about aliens with Damon Wayans and Jeff Goldblum and
Jim Carrey
I'm
and
Jim Carrey. Yes, Jim Carrey. Like that was
Julie
like
Brown.
Jim Carrey before Julie Brown. Yeah, which she'll come up here soon again. Sex Lies and Videotapes.
Yeah.
Steven Soderbergh.
Yep.
Right. Um, Heathers. Winona Ryder, the It Girl. Right. Who
Yes.
made a Jim Jarmusch movie,
Night on Earth.
which was one of those movies that we both remember.
Yeah.
This crazy comedy with Randy Quaid called Parents
Oh my
about
God.
these
The
cannibalistic
Cannibal.
parents. Yes. Scenes from the class struggles of Beverly Hills, which I forgot to include in our Beverly Hills episode, which I'm not quite sure if this will come out before then or that, but which was made by the same filmmakers from Eating Raoul. And then like David Lynch too. Blue Velvet, Wild at Heart, right?
Yeah.
All those movies were at these other, and they were not at Blockbuster. I mean, maybe Sex Lies and Videotapes,
Yeah.
Earth Girls Are Easy, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
Heather's probably,
Yes.
but any of those other ones, like, and then from a documentary standpoint, it's like, this was the first time we were exposed to documentaries too. And the movie, The Thin Blue Line, Errol Morris famously got somebody out of jail because he actually like investigated this um, Texas case, and the guy's case was overturned. Which has made Errol Morris famous. Um, just documentaries in general. I know that you wanted to talk about that, like that was even a thing. Like I don't think we had seen a
No.
documentary
Yeah.
before that.
I definitely know that as far as the Thin Blue Line goes, I'm sure you and mom watched that and I was probably already asleep. But I remember mom taking us to see, this is a few years later, this is at 92, but My Brother's Keeper. And that's a very intense documentary for a 9-year-old. And so I remember us going to the theater and being like, "What are we seeing tonight?" And she's like, "Honey, it's a documentary." And I'm like, "What is that?" And
Mm.
she's like, "It's like we're watching someone's actual life." Why are we doing that? Um, and I'm sure what's weird is I remember being so adamantly like, "This is gonna suck. I'm bored. I don't want to see this," going into it. And I'll even say that probably leaving it, I was just a little bit like rolling my eyes.
Sure.
But I do know like there was something inside of me, even as a little kid, that was like, that was kind of cool. Like, I don't know, just like that was neat to see how some other people live. Or, just a glimpse, a real life glimpse
Hmm.
into this super old man's life or like how he lived. There was just something that was like, oh, documentaries are kind of cool. And I don't
Yeah.
know who else was gonna, I mean, the next person that was probably gonna introduce me to one would have been you. I just don't know when the time would have come as a child for me to like see a documentary on the wall at Blockbuster and be like, I will be getting that. That sounds interesting. Yeah.
They weren't. I mean, and I could just be completely misremembering. I don't even remember a documentary section at Blockbuster. I'm sure they'd had one, right?
But it was
But at the
little.
height of it was tiny.
Yeah.
And they certainly didn't have Brothers Keeper.
Yes.
Because the themes in there were very challenging. It's these brothers who live in rural America, and one of them dies, and one of them is basically charged with his death. And it was just some really challenging material. I'm not going to really get into too much of it, but it was some really challenging material. And um, it's one of those movies that I'll give credit to our local film critic at the time, Robert Butler. I think Butler gave it 4 stars or 3.5. And that was really important to Mom. She was really all about, if
Mm-hmm.
Robert Butler is given this thing this much, praise, I got to go take the kids, right? Because
Yeah.
it's important. Like this is an important thing. And I really do feel like, because Mom was always about education, she made sure we went to really good schools, right? And I think she somewhat thought that movies could serve as an additional education, because
Totally.
she wanted us to go to the art museums, and she wanted to expose us to art, and she just wanted to like make sure that we had access to as much culture as possible. Um, and that's what I think, these independent video stores really represented. And her liberation honestly was our liberation in a way,
Yeah.
because I don't know that we would have been exposed we would have figured it out later, but it would have been later. So it couldn't have worked its magic on us. These ideas, these themes, understanding that these people exist, that these stories exist, that aren't the like, 3-act structure necessarily, right?
Mm-hmm.
These complex ideas really helped us become, I think, the people who we are now, with complex ideas and like, a very rich cultural life, and, really understanding, and, I mean, I think very understanding, empathetic people too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, so, um, so that's kind of the serious part of it. And then we've got a movie like Shakes the Clown.
Oh my gosh. This is like epic in my brain because, okay, this is one when we were living at the house on Harrison. And okay, I just want to paint a picture really quick. So we moved, Justin and I are being told like we're moving into this like house that like when we get there, it looks like it's like a big house that like our mom's renting.
No, it is. It's a big
It's a
house.
big
It's a
house.
big 3-story house.
And it was like, whoa. But then you open the door and it was like, we're not getting the whole house. You kind of walked into like
Right.
this lobby common area. And on the first floor, there was another apartment on the first floor. And then you walk up some stairs and there's another door. And so we were the top level of the house. That's what Mom was renting. And I just want to share a really quick story that one time when I was like 6 or 7, um, I spent the night at a friend's house, and Mom and that mom got their times mixed up as far as when I would be being dropped off the next day. And I was dropped off at the house, and I walked into that first door because it was unlocked. And so the other mom drove away because she was like, "Oh, she's in the house." And then I walk up to our door and knock on it, and no one was there. And I just didn't know. And I didn't,
And wait, how old were you again?
6 years old.
6 years old.
And
Just pulling on that door and it's locked.
and obviously no
Cool.
phones, no nothing, just the outside world at 6. And so I ended up knocking on that person downstairs door, and
Who we had never met.
we'd never met, but
Mm.
the woman opened it. She was like a younger woman, like super long black hair. She was definitely kind of goth. And her boyfriend was there. He was like, Robert Smithish goth. And I was like, nobody's home. I'm not the little girl who lives upstairs. I live upstairs. Nobody's home.
Oh
Can
my
I
God.
stay here? And so they let me in. And I'm not kidding you. They had an aquarium full of rats. And at first I was scared, but then they like started playing with the rats and it like helped calm me down. And at some point Mom came home and, was like super worried because I do think I had like been able to call Mamos or something. And then somehow they
Mm.
called Mom at the
Right.
quaff or something like that. And so she was all worried, but I was like in there playing with rats and I was cool. But anyhow, back to Shakes the Clown. I just had to
Shakes
tell
the
that part of
clown.
it. So we're living in this house on Harrison. We're renting movies, and usually I can watch them. But she brings home this movie, Shakes the Clown, which I'm like, yeah, I'll be watching that. That says that's got clown in the title. And then she's like, no, your brother and I are watching that after you go to bed. I'm like, what? And she's like, it is inappropriate for you. It's like, it wasn't NC-17, was it? It was just R.
No, and I don't even remember. I don't think that it had any NC-17 material in it, but it was a filthy film.
Yeah. So it was a hard R.
Hard R. Yes.
And
especially if you think about the idea that it's clowns.
yeah, so it's
right?
called Shakes the Clown. It's got Bobcat Goldthwait, who the last time I saw him was in Hot to Trot. You know, like I should be able to watch this movie. But she was like, she was not, that was one where she really put her foot down. Like, you are too little to watch Shakes the Clown. But I do remember, and I haven't seen it since. The only thing I've seen is I did sneak out and of my bedroom and I peeked into the living room, and I think that I saw the scene where, like, I feel like, is there a scene where like Shakes knocks on the door and he's got like a naughty nurse with him, and then she pulls down her top or something? I don't know. That's what I remember.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute since I've seen it too. I just remember that it just had. I just remember like watching it, and I'm like, Robin Williams is in this.
Yeah.
And he plays the heavy. He played this like heavy, like not friendly clown, right? It honestly at that, it didn't feel like I should be watching it. Like that was like, that was sort of the level of even though I think at the time I was like 14, 15, I was like, should I be, is this? But that was the thing. It's like she didn't really have. It's like if it was, R rated. And I do have to say, like, Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down, The Cook, the Thief, the Wife, and Her Lover. That was not stuff that like we rented and watched together. That was stuff like later on, right? But that's when like those movies were coming out and the whole NC-17 versus R, right? But I mean, like a movie like Shakes the Clown was not at Blockbuster, at least for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, and Bobcat Goldthwait's character was an alcoholic clown
Yeah.
who had to drink, otherwise he would get the shakes.
Right.
Right. But it had an early Adam Sandler in it.
Yep.
Right. Before anybody knew who Adam Sandler was. Right. I mean, I think he was right before that. And then he got on SNL like very, very soon after that. Tom Kenny. And Tom Kenny's character was a clown that loved cocaine. Loved it.
I gotta watch it.
So later on, and I really think like that was like our first exposure to what was known at the time as like the alternative comedy scene, right? And the alternative comedy scene, with people like Bob Odenkirk and David Cross and Tom Kenny and these types of folks, like Janine Garofalo, right? Like then that would give birth to things like Mr. Show, right?
Yeah.
Which we really, were crazy about too. But Shakes that was really our first exposure, I think, to like what was really a completely different type of comedy.
Yeah, totally.
Very dark. And I would say probably the first dark comedy we ever saw.
Yeah. And I bet like, that's probably what didn't add up to me either, was like, it's a comedy. Like, why can't I watch this? Like sometimes I understood why I couldn't watch a drama. But yeah, I just didn't know there was a dirty, filthy comedy out there.
And a little bit of trivia about Shakes the Clown. Okay. So you've heard of the Razzies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Razzies are the worst movies of the year, or supposed worst movies of the year. Shakes the Clown is a great film. Was a great film, but obviously like people had issues with it because it's like, well, clowns shouldn't be doing that. There shouldn't be a movie being made about, clowns doing cocaine and being, alcoholic with delirium tremens. So Shakes was nominated for Worst Picture at the 1991 Stinkers Bad Movie Award.
Oh, Stinkers.
But Stinkers, and I think we have a little bit of a story about that. But it lost to a movie that we are going to be covering. We're going to be talking about Nothing But Trouble.
Oh, the best stinker of them all.
The most a movie where the director got to do, Dan Aykroyd got to do whatever the fuck that came into his mind. That is the most batshit crazy movie I think we ever saw in a movie theater.
Yes.
We'll get to it we'll get to it soon.
Yes.
It's on the list of like for stuff to talk about. But Shakes the Clown, neck and neck at the 1991 Stinkers Bad Movie Award. They had to call it the Stinkers Bad Movie Award. Stinkers itself, it could have just been the Stinkers.
Yeah.
And if it would have been the Stinkers, it probably would have stuck around, I think. Like the Razzies, we got it, right? A Razzie's like a, kind of a fart, right? A little bit. Stinkers, if they just would have said Stinkers, right? It probably could have been a reliable companion or, a rival to the Razzies. But then they had to they had to give away the joke, right? Bad Movie Award. It's like, okay, Stinkers, you're not going to be around for a while. But Stinkers is a word that was in our life at the time too. Do you want to explain this?
Yeah. Well, when you told me that it won a stinker award, it couldn't. I personally, I hate the word stinker, and this is why. And it goes right back to Ernestine Eileen Holke. So when we were little and you farted, and you said, everyone in my life said, oh, I farted, or you farted, or whatever. And that's what I grew up. And, when you're 6 years old, also fart's funny and whatever. Fart is the word. I farted, you farted, whatever. Mom, her liberation, feeling more cultured, moving to Midtown. Maybe she thought farted was a Raytown word, okay? She did not like farted. So I probably came over one weekend.
She could be right.
Yeah, maybe.
She could be right.
So
she could be right.
I probably, came over one weekend, spending the week in Raytown with Dad or something, and I farted. And I probably said, oh, I farted. And she said, we do not say fart in this house. We say stinkered. And I was like, what? And she was saying, if you pass gas, you say I stinkered. And I was like, okay. She was like, in my house, you say I stinkered. And like, even saying it right now, I knew at 6, 7 years old, I can't say that in public ever. It's not okay.
Yeah.
I can't say that at school. If someone farts, I'm not going to go, you stinkered. I knew that was baby talk. Like, I just knew. Like, I hate it. I hate saying it right now, but I'm serious. It was like one of those things. And I'm so glad because obviously, like, your training is what your parents give you. They kind of like train you. And a lot of the things they gave us, we did. But I am so proud of myself that I did not follow in her footsteps saying I stinkered. And if she said that in public, I'm like, what is up with you? Why did you choose that? Farted is better. She thought farted was nastier than stinkered. I mean, I guess
I think that particular rule had a shelf life. I really do. I feel like she was trying it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because she definitely doesn't still say stinkered. Okay.
Yeah.
That whatever that rule was, that was maybe like a 4 or 5 month rule. And then she probably got in front of one of her friends, right? And somebody farted and she probably said, "Oh, who stinkered?" And they probably were like, "Ernie, what did you say?" Like, "Did you just say stinkered?" It's like, "No, they passed gas." Oh. And I think like that's kind of like what it is. She doesn't like to say farted. Yeah, right?
I was about to
It became past gas.
I want to do a family challenge this summer at Christmas where we're with mom. We need someone in the room to fart. And then we need to be like, what was that? Or something, or like, and then see what she chooses to say. Cause I do want to know.
I agree. And it's got to be Zeb.
Yeah.
It's got to be Zeb.
Zeb, my husband, has to part for the family.
Yes. He'll do it.
Yeah.
He'll do it. The last Christmas, not this last one, obviously, because, it was 2020 and fuck 2020. The year before that, Zeb pulls me aside. This is a complete, offshoot. I don't know where I'm going with this. I know where I'm going with this. It has nothing to do with this episode, but I'm just going to tell it anyway.
Yeah.
So Zeb pulls me aside. He's like, hey, Justin, come here. I'm like, hey, what's going on? He's like, okay, would you play this song right here? Like, when I give you the signal. Okay. So it was that song from Risky Business.
Old time rock and roll.
Yes, old time rock and roll.
Mhm.
All right. And then I see what he's planning on doing. And what he is planning on doing is recreating the scene where Tom Cruise slides across the floor singing old time rock and roll. But in the movie, Tom Cruise was by himself and just feeling himself, right?
Mhm.
He was like, his parents are away, right? He's, just letting loose. He just wants to sing. He wants to be in his underwear, his tighty whities, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Same thing. But Zeb slides in tighty whities. I turn it on. He slides in front of 12 people,
Yeah.
including children.
Yeah.
and
older.
And yes, it's like, but they've seen it, right?
Yeah.
We're all family though. I mean, but it was, I have to give Zeb his props. It was flawless and it absolutely killed that. I was so proud of actually being part of that moment because he pulled it off. And we've got a picture where somebody took a picture of him having just like basically almost stopped the slide,
Mhm.
but the microphone's to his, and he's like,
Yeah.
like that. And it's just perfect. And hopefully you're seeing that picture right now. But again, that has nothing to do with this episode.
Well,
except that it's family, right?
and mom, the
And-
shirt, he was wearing a button-down shirt that mom had gotten him for Christmas. And
There we go.
And she was so excited because she was like, this is a really snazzy shirt. And it's not really Zeb's style, which is just kind of subtle, neutral tones. Our mom had bought him like this kind of lime green and teal blue paisley clubbing shirt. And so he came out and she was like, honey, do you like it? Will you try it on, honey? And he was like, sure. And I'll try it on. And then he goes and does a whole show for the family. Our mammo is like bellied over, like laughing so hard.
Oh, it was so funny.
It was
so
good.
funny.
It was so good. So yes, he will fart for us to find out if our mom still says stinkered.
Stinkered.
Yes. Yeah, so I think that that gives a pretty good overview of her with the indie movie stores, but there was a Blockbuster that ended up moving it because we even moved a little more midtown. We moved to Westport, me and mom, into a different apartment.
Right.
And then that actually had a Blockbuster.
Yes.
Which you were.
So there was a Blockbuster and a Valentine Video in the same. Valentine Video was the indie one. Blockbuster was obviously this corporate chain, right? Of course, everybody knows Blockbuster. And they were in the same strip mall. But Valentine Video was just right around the corner, right? Just kind of like hidden right around the corner, right? I've got a Blockbuster story though. And it's a source of pride, but I later find it could have been a source of shame, but I still was proud of it, right?
Mhm.
So this comes a little bit later. I'm I go to college and I come back and, I had a journalism degree at the time. So I come back and I work for the local news station, Fox 4 in Kansas City. And I'm a videotape editor. So I'm editing video for 9 and 10 o'clock news. So I've got to get there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when my shift starts. And I leave after the show. The 10 o'clock news is over. So that's 10:30, right? This is 1999. Okay. So, and I believe actually like that was the year that I graduated. So I had actually graduated college, right? And I just had this kind of weird, like Nosferatu like existence where I would like go into, the work at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, sit in like a dark edit studio, right? Just like, hunched over with these tapes, it was A/B roll. It wasn't nonlinear. So I was literally like putting a tape into a deck, winding it to a certain thing, putting another tape and like basically recording deck to deck, right? I mean, like that's what they needed. So by the time I would edit like the 10 o'clock news, I would have edited like 50 tapes and they were putting them into these decks and like queuing them up. And then when somebody would start to talk, they would hit play, right?
Mhm.
Like that's the type of news editing that I was doing. So, but I was spending a lot of time in the dark, essentially watching video, right? Like that was my existence. So of course, what do you want to do after you get off work? It's 10:30 at night. Really, nobody wanted to go out and do anything, right? All my friends from college were elsewhere in the country. So I would go to Blockbuster and I would rent um, between 1 and 3 movies, right?
Mhm.
Usually 3, right? Usually 3. And so I would rent 3 movies because that's really all I had to do, right? And so I'd go home. It was 11 o'clock, and I would watch movies until probably 6 in the morning, right? When the sun started to come up, and then like
My brother,
Nosferatu.
the vampire.
I was a fucking vampire. I was a video vampire. That's what it
Ooh,
is.
cool.
I was a video.
Need that
Hey.
T-shirt.
That's right. That's right. So I was this video vampire. The people at Blockbuster knew me, right? And this was like, so I had graduated. So me graduating was really important because like I graduated in May, and then June, July, August is when I was working at Fox 4. And so I just rented a insane amount of movies, right? I mean, 3 a day, Monday through Friday. And then the weekends, I'm sure I was just, because I wasn't working on the weekends, I'm sure I rented another 6, whatever, right? It was just as movies, movies, and movies, movies. Well, then September rolls around, right? September, late September, early October, and I get this like package in the mail. And it's from Blockbuster. And I'm like, huh, okay. So I open it up, and inside is Blockbuster Rewards Gold Card.
Mm.
And I'm like, what do we have here?
Okay.
Like it was just like, what is this? Right. I didn't sign up for it. Right. It
Mhm.
just arrived in the mail.
Whew.
Come to find out, that's when Blockbuster was basically like that. Those 3 months, those 90 days is when they were keeping track of their customers to basically launch their new rewards program. Because you had that Blockbuster membership, right? It was the Blockbuster card, and it was the laminated, right? The
Mhm.
laminated, they would make it at the store right there for you, right? Well, this was like the hard plastic version, right? People were getting their Blockbuster rewards card. And you had the Blockbuster rewards. And I think if you rented a new release, you could get another one for like cheaper. You earn points, all this other stuff. Blockbuster Rewards Gold was different though, because they basically were like, you are crazy. You are renting movies all the time. We're just going to give you a free rental when you rent any other movie.
Okay.
So that was the deal. I saw it. It's like, I can rent a movie and then I get another one for free. So what happened, right? I started renting 4 movies, right?
Okay.
Because I could rent 2 and then I could get 2 for free, right? So
Yeah.
why not, right?
Yeah.
So it was, I mean, I felt just incredibly lucky. And when I would go into Blockbuster, they were like, whoa, we don't see this, right? So
Ooh.
I felt like I was like hot shit, right?
Mhm.
Like I had like the the rewards gold card, right? Okay. So fast forward 10 years, right? And I go to work for AMC Theaters, corporate office, big theatrical exhibition company, right? Biggest theatrical exhibition company in the world. And they get a new chief marketing officer, and he's from Blockbuster. And of course, I'm going to be like, hey, so by the way, right? And I remembered them talking. It's like he was one of the people there when they launched the rewards program, right? So I knew this information about him. And so I made sure I was like, hey, by the way, just so you know, Gold Rewards member right here, right? And whereas I thought I was going to get a like, oh, well, you, my friend, were one of the elite, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got something akin to this. Oh, yeah, I've got a story about that. Come to find out that they had launched that as a way to identify their elite renters, right? Their elite customers, because they were going to build a whole marketing campaign around the Blockbuster Gold Rewards members. Well, what they what they found out was that the vast majority of the Blockbuster Gold Rewards members were shut-ins and people who just they would never want to feature in marketing of any kind, right? People who had these like
Vampires.
sad lives.
Video vampires.
Right? Right, video vampires. People that they would never want to like, And so he's telling me this story and like I'm thinking like it's going to be this like, like he's I knew it was probably not going to be great, but I just didn't know what to expect. But I didn't think that I was going to be grouped in with shut-ins and the and people who, can't get along in society. So that's my Blockbuster Gold Rewards story. I went on eBay, by the way, just to kind of see, because I actually like got rid of my Gold Rewards card probably right after that. I just was like, fuck this fucking card. People are selling their Gold Rewards cards on eBay because they were so rare for like $100 to $200.
Okay, that's cool.
I think that kind of brings it back around. I don't think he was right. I actually think the Gold Rewards member, history will tell the story, and I'm telling the story that those people, if you were a Blockbuster Gold Rewards card member, you're awesome.
Yes, I'm clapping.
You know a lot about movies. Yes, you know a lot about movies. They should have featured you because you were the reason why Blockbuster was so successful. So
you're
fuck that guy.
Yes. FM
Blockbuster Gold Reward members. Yeah, we're awesome, and that's what I'm sticking with. So
I love that story. I think you're video royalty. But I also love that now we have the term video vampire too. So that's great.
Video vampire, that's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good one.
Well, we're coming to the end of our show, and we talked a lot about the past. So I want to bring it into the present, Justin. And I would like to know, what are you obsessed with right now? What are you into this week?
So it's completely different from actually like what we're talking about. I broke down I watched the Mortal Kombat movie.
Oh my gosh, okay.
On HBO Max.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it is so in context, the reason why I wanted to talk about this is like, this is like a very big where we were when, right? Because Mortal Kombat was like the fucking video game for young like boys, especially because it was bloody and it was this fighting game. Get over here. And it was also like kind of realistic because they're really like they were literally capturing people, like real people in costumes fighting, right? And that was one of those movie memories for me that like when the first Mortal Kombat movie came out, I will put the start of that movie up against any movie because it just goes into that song, Mortal Kombat, dun dun dun. Like, I mean, it's just like you're just like, yes, right? Like you just were, as a 12-year-old boy, you're like, yes, yes, yes. Well, I watch Mortal Kombat because I just have to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And none of the Mortal Kombat movies have been good, right? Like they're good, but like they just, and they haven't been bloody enough. They haven't been violent enough, right? This movie knows exactly what it is. It delivers the gore. It delivers the fatalities.
Ooh, okay.
It's got really decent mythology behind Sub-Zero and Scorpion. Like it starts off in like feudal era Japan. I mean, it has its flaws. I wouldn't say it's a good movie, but it's a movie that knows exactly what it is. And I just really appreciate that. Like I really appreciate that they took the time to build the lore, the mythology, why Jax has these like massive like robot arms, right?
Mm.
I don't know. I was really impressed. And it
Ooh.
wasn't a movie I was going to go see in the theater. I've got HBO Max, broke down, watched it on HBO Max, and I was pleasantly surprised. So I'm a little obsessed with Mortal Kombat.
I love
all
it. And I'm
things right
fully
now.
influenced. I'm watching it. That sounds like such a good time.
Yeah. What are you obsessed with?
Okay. So I haven't finished it. I'm halfway through, but I am fully obsessed. It's a podcast too. I'm not in competition with other podcasts. I'm happy to celebrate them all. Okay, this one is on Spotify and it's called Welcome to Your Fantasy. And it is a documentary series about when the Chippendales Club and Dancers opened like in the 1980s. And just, obviously I love nostalgia. I love to imagine being a woman of a different time. And I am telling you, the way they describe the women that were going to the Chippendales Club in LA and then one that opened in New York, like a nightclub full of 1,000 women, all screaming for these half naked dudes on stage who all have like lion's mane hairdos. Like I don't like fantasize about like muscle men stripping, but there is something about the 1980s and the excess and the music of the time and just women out being wild and having fun with their girlfriends because there were no men allowed. So it was just like,
Okay.
just like they would let men in like after the like show was over, but before that it was just like women out having fun. And this podcast does such a good job just like really setting the scene and playing audio from that time, talking to the male exotic dancers. And then also there's a playlist, the Welcome to Your Fantasy playlist that just plays a lot of the music that these guys would dance to. And it is so friggin' good. There is this song. I know that everybody knows Lover Boy's Working for the Weekend, like, and that's what you think is
Right.
like the Lover Boy song. Listen to The Kid Is Hot Tonight. It's better. It's better than Working for the Weekend. So I am obsessed.
It's Loverboy. It's
also Loverboy.
Same band.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
They know how to write a really fun poppy rock song. I'm obsessed with that podcast. I'm obsessed with that song. That's what I got for you.
I love it. I got to check it out. I've been looking for I'm serious. Like I'm liberated, right? Like I can, appreciate the other side of the coin,
Yeah.
so to speak. And I think that's like it's a nice tie into this kind of, feeling liberated, right?
Yes.
So I'm feeling a little liberated right now.
Okay. I'm feeling liberated too.
Well, so I feel liberated enough to ask you if I can finish the pitch that I never got to finish last in part one, because I think that you got busy or something. You had to go to the
Yes,
bathroom,
I
and then like,
apologize. I
yeah,
had to go to the bathroom, and then there was a big deal with the cats, just with like
yeah,
feeding, and
I,
I totally zoned out. I'm
I,
sorry, I forgot.
yeah, I totally understand. It's like I was, it was like it was. I don't know. I just like waited for like 20 minutes or so, but it was like
Oh
it
my
was not
god,
a
I'm
big deal.
sorry. That's so
Um,
bad.
no, don't worry about it. But like, I just I wanted to kind of finish that pitch that I had, right?
Okay, that's your
Um,
liberation. Got it.
I'm feeling liberated, right? So, and it actually has a little bit to do with what we talked about. Um, we're talking about our mom. We were talking about stinkers, right? Um, the sketch idea is called Farting Mom. And so
No.
let me just
No, no,
get
no.
no, okay. Well,
No.
I mean, okay. Well, you
No.
said that I could do it last time, but that's not
you
a
totally just did it. And it's a no for me.
there's a mythology, there's a backstory that I have.
That's never
So
good. That's
it's
never good for sketch. Yeah.
it
I think when people
okay.
have too much of a backstory, it's like, hey, this is just like a 3-minute sketch, So
I mean, it's a complete emotional journey.
yeah, that is a
And
red flag for
it's
a
like
really bad sketch.
for like a pre-tape though, I mean, like, just, I mean, it's a, listen, no,
Yeah,
it's like that.
it's a no.
It's a hard no.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
a hard no.
pass.
Okay.
Okay.
It's okay. I've got more. More.
Okay.
We're going
Great.
to more episodes, more pitches, more fun.
Yeah. And
Heidi,
movie more movies and nostalgia than Saturday Night Live pitches, but yeah, I guess those are on the show now too.
way more pitches than movies. Is that what you meant?
No,
Is that
no,
what
no,
you
no.
said?
I meant
Way more. No, the other way. Way more movies than pitches.
yes.
Right. Because we talked probably about I don't know, how many movies did we talk about tonight? There's like at least like 15 movies.
Probably.
One great pitch that you haven't heard, but like we talked about 15 great movies.
Yes.
So
okay, so it's
pretty much
balanced.
equal. Right.
We're both
Yeah, it's
liberated.
We're both liberated. So until next time, I'm Justin Gardner. She's Heidi Gardner. And this is Where We Were When.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
So our guest this week actually works with me. I work with him at Saturday Night Live. He is a director on the show. Last season, he directed the Joker Grouch. I don't want to even call it a parody because it was really just like an incredible short film. His name's Paul Briganti. Hi, Paul.
Hi. How's it going?